Any questions at all on the market? Not necessarily a fund that you have, but is there anything that you guys want to cover about the market? Yeah.
Oh, and that market, an annuity, I just wanted to.
Okay.
I was thinking about a fixed annuity, and girlfriend was just saying it tonight. Oh, read the fine print right, and I was like, well, it's 5.5 for 5 years. Like, what can go wrong?
Yeah. So what can go wrong is if you need the money in that 5 years. And there's going to be surrender charges. And so a lot of them, if it's like a 5 year, might be like a 5%. They may even be a 7% surrender charge the first year, and they go like 765.
They're saying fine for it to be in there. I'm like, is there something written somewhere that's like?
Well, so whoever's selling it to you is supposed to go over the surrender charges with you.
Oh.
That's actually something you're supposed to sign off.
And I know, look for one of the A-rated companies. Like, are there 4 A's or no?
No, they're so A rated, A plus rated.
Oh.
But the thing is, what's kind of funny about the ratings with insurance carriers is if an insurance company only sells one product, they can't get an A plus rating. So to look for an A plus is not really. So we'll actually go through and do stuff all the way up to like a B or B plus rating company. The neat thing is that insurance companies are regulated the same as FDIC, but it's a different. Do you remember what it's called? So you remember what the insurance backing is? All right. So as an insurance agent, as an insurance agent, they cannot tell you that it's in, which I think is kind of weird. But there is an FDIC insurance. And so there's actually a way that you can see the ratings based off the financial stability of the company too. So like when I'm dealing with insurance companies, that's what I do, is I pull their financial stability. And what's funny is that like the second largest insurance carrier in our country, actually the second largest in the world, has a lower financial stability than some of the smaller ones, which is kind of interesting, right? But that's what we kind of look at to kind of wage it out. But let's say that the company were to fail or go out of business. $250,000 of deposit plus interest is insured. A little bit different. And that has to be given to you within 30 days, not 36 months. That's why when we're doing all stuff with the veterans, we could use the insurance products and not use the banks. So actually, you're safer going with the insurance.
I thought someone said it was insured by the state of Florida.
It is. That's exactly what it is. HIGA. It's HIGA is the acronym for it. But what's funny is that the insurance agents cannot tell you about HIGA in order to do the sale. So we can definitely talk about it here in class. Do you remember what the acronym stands for? Michaela, can you look over quick what HIGA stands for? Something in HIGA, HIGA. Health Insurance Guaranteed Act, I think is what it is. So there's only certain insurance products that are regulated under that and guaranteed, and that is your long-term care policies, your annuity, and life insurance. Your health insurance is not, your car insurance, homeowners, not at all, right? So only the disability, long-term care, and annuities are covered under that, and life insurance is covered under that. So there's a company that went out of business that I had my mom in. And so only part of their division went out, the division that was in Colorado, the rest of the company's still around. So she was actually receiving money coming out of that contract, and so we missed the money for 30 days. It actually was then underwritten by a different carrier, and all of her money continued to move on. Now my mom has gone into some care, and I need to take lump sums out of it. So I got in touch with them, and because I don't have the exact medical records I would need to show that my mom is disabled and needing to have professional care because my brother's taking care of her, I can only access 25% of the face amount without any type of surrender charges or penalties. I could definitely liquidate the entire thing if I want to. When she passes, then of course the entire thing will liquidate, or if we have to have professional care, then I can have the whole thing without a surrender charge. So if you're not needing the money, then that may be a decent way to go. The issue is that right now, bonds are kind of paying the same. CDs are doing the same. You know, I mean, you might find CDs at 5.3, 5.25. So, you know, would you want to go that route? There's some also, this is kind of interesting. When interest rates go down, you refinance your house. When interest rates go up, you refinance your insurance contract. Okay? So this is really the time to buy into. And there's some actual index annuities that I was talking about that can offer like 10% to go into. Yeah, a little bit longer, but I mean, it's amazing.
How
So,
long?
A lot of those are 10 years. 10 years. But they give you like a 10% bonus, and then they're growing with no cap on it. So there's various different vehicles that are out there. So just, that's the thing, is that how does it fit into your plan and what you're trying to do? How old are you? What's that money for? What are you going to use it for? That type of thing. And we can definitely talk about that in the lab session. In the lab session, you can open up whatever you want and pick my brain about you individually.
Okay.
Okay? Any other questions on the market or annuities or life insurance or any of that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the EFTs and the potential management fees on some of the EFTs,
Yeah.
who has, what about the market indexes like the SPY, the SPY on the S&P 500 and the triple Qs, on the NASDAQ?
Yeah.
Are there any fees backed into those
No.
index funds?
No, those they're not, because they're picked up basically of their
Right.
sure size of the S&P 500.
That's
But if you're going off of an ETF that they're actually a money manager's picking the philosophy that's in there, like I said, maybe go totally green, or maybe you don't want anything to do with the guns or with Russia or whatever, and you start being selective like that, then there's going to usually be some type of a back fee. But you won't see the back fee. That's the crazy thing. It's not like it's going to advertise like a mutual fund does. It's just going to automatically be built into the rate of return. Anybody else? All right, then we'll go on and talk about income. Favorite thing, because it makes the world go around. So we're going to talk about longevity risk, right? Which, how long are you going to live? Sequence of returns, which we kind of already talked about the sequence of returns, because I showed you how important it is to not have a lot of negative downside, or you can have real challenges on that sequence of return. How to ensure lifetime income, Social Security, we're going to talk about Social Security 101, employer-sponsored retirement plans, personal retirement savings, requirement distributions, and it says we'll do case studies, but that's right. So, we're jumping back to the very first day because I talked real heavy about what are you spending, what's your income, and what's that balance sheet. And it's funny because I got together with my wife over the weekend. I said, for years we talked about budget. I sent you guys the fillable budget. We talk about budget at the office, and I always say the same thing. I said, try and make it fun. So I said there, I want to figure out a different word than budget, because it just seems negative. People just don't like it. I can see everybody kind of tense when I talk about budget. And she said, I want lifestyle. I said, I think that's really neat. And I think it goes right along with dreams. So if you think about it, whatever you're spending right now is your lifestyle, right? I mean, it's the lifestyle that you're in. What lifestyle do you want? So what's crazy is that we dream a lot when we're kids. And then we get out in that big bad world and we start getting beat up by everything, and it seems like we stop dreaming. But now that you're going into golden retirement, you're going into those years, start dreaming again. What do you want to do? What is your lifestyle going to look like, right? So if you have an idea of like what you want to do and what the costs are going to be, you could jot them down so that you can see what your lifestyle is now, right? What's your lifestyle now? What is funding it? And is there a surplus or a shortfall to it? Understand, I said that there's, those expenses seem to sneak up on us, but income doesn't seem to sneak up on us, right? However, if you're doing tax mitigation appropriately and you're not paying money out into excess tax that you shouldn't, isn't that going to increase your income? If you have investments that aren't exercising downside movement and they don't have to recover, then they're just staying steady, isn't that going to increase your income? If you're not paying excess interest out onto credit cards or different expenses that you don't need to, that would increase your income. So that's why it's so important to get an idea of where that lifestyle is and what you guys actually want to do. And the biggest thing is, be proud of where you're at. Don't beat yourself up because you're not there. The class that we did last month, I had a gentleman come in, and it was funny because he sat down and he goes, I'm so embarrassed with what I have. Now, he had a lot. I'm going to tell you that flat out. He had a lot, okay? Because most people don't have a ton of money, but he had like 2.6 million. And he goes, but I'm not happy because I really felt I'd be at 4 million at this point. Why? Why? Just what would the 4 million do? What would be different? If you had that kind of money, would you just leave it to your beneficiaries? Is that what you want to do, is leave more to your beneficiaries? Because you can buy a life insurance policy and have $4 million. Is it a case where that's how much you need to have the lifestyle that you wanted? And he's like, no, I live a pretty good lifestyle. So then what's the reason? It's just the number that was in his head. So he's beating himself up because he's not there and not happy with where he's at, which is ridiculous. You need to be happy with where you're at, right? I don't know about you guys, but every day I actually take a walk around our yard and I just think about how blessed we are. You know, it's just amazing with what we have. It could all be gone tomorrow. Who knows? But it's really incredible with what we have, what we've worked for, what we've fought to get, and it's just a blessing. Now, yeah, I always try to strive and do better. I always try and strive to help more people out, but I'm happy with what I've done. So if my days were over today, I'm happy. And so if you can get into that mode, I think it becomes a little bit more fun, a little bit more relaxed, and try and figure out where we're going. But did everybody get that sheet in your email, the fillable? Yes, everybody got it? Nobody did not get it? Great. Try and use it, okay? And he'd asked if he needs to fill out and bring it to us on the lab session. No, you can if you want to, but no, it's not something we're going to really go over in the lab session, unless that's what you want to talk about. Is, hey, how do I take my lifestyle from here to there? And that's the topics that we'll talk about, okay? So I kind of showed you this before in the little diagram where the person was kind of unsure about getting in the market, and they were really excited, and all of a sudden they lost all hope and they had total fear. That's kind of the same thing as this. And it's talking about the fact of like climbing Mount Everest, you know? Most people think that the most dangerous part is getting up. And it's actually not the climb. And when you get to that top and just that total excitement, they're only there for a very short period of time because then you're going to start to decline. I heard a speaker the other day say, you know, what's crazy is that the second the human body is born, it starts dying. And that's really true. You can't get time back, right? I mean, everything you start declining. And that's how this is. You're going to hit that retirement and be like, yes, I finally made it. But then this is the danger zone, the going down the other side. And the reason why it's the danger zone is because you have these different things. How long are you going to be with us? Right? What's going to be your health situation? Because if one of you gets sick, the amount of cost of health could be huge. Inflation is going to continue to hit. The sequence of withdrawals. We saw that if you start taking out when the market is down and you're now cutting into your principal, you could run out of money. Market volatility. And then is there money that you want to go through and leave to your heirs? So really that downside is the scary part. And so that's kind of what this section is going to be about, so we can try and take some of that fear away, but also kind of secure some of it. So this is kind of a crazy statistic, and it's showing that the married couple right now at 62, there is a 95% chance when you're going to live, I'm sorry, there's a 15% chance when you're going to live to 95. Holy crow, right? I just said that our grandkids could see 120, right? So there's a 90% chance, or 40% chance when you live to 40, 65% chance when you're going to live to 85. That's a long time if you're thinking about retiring at 65, which is what's always been the thing. Some people now say, I'm going to retire at 70. That's a long time to be in retirement and have your investments paying you a paycheck, right? So that's where those three legs really have to be set up straight and solid so that you can go through and do it. So I kind of explained that if you have a decent pension, you have nice investments, and you have Social Security coming in, then you're balanced. If you're missing one of those, then it's going to be a balancing act. And if you only have one leg, then it's going to be a circus act, right? You're still going to retire, but it's just going to depend upon how well you're going to juggle it. So this is that three-legged stool, having Social Security. Social Security is a really big deal. We're going to talk about it in a second because there's 576 ways to take your Social Security, and you want to try and maximize the most out of it. Then you can either have an employer-sponsored plan, or you can create your own, and then you're going to have that personal savings. So let's talk about Social Security. Social Security was created by Roosevelt back in 1938. Pretty smart guy to go through and come up with the entire system. What confuses me is that at the time the life expectancy was 63, and he figured that most people's Social Security would run out at 65, as in they would be gone. From that point in 1938 for as long as Social Security was going to last. Did he not read history books that we were dying at 13 years of age and 19 years of age, and in his era we were at 62 and 63? Did he not? I don't get that part, but it was kind of set up for failure off of that right from the start. However, Social Security will always be around. It is not going away. And here's the reason why it's not going to go away is because there's two parts. The first part is what Roosevelt set up. He created what they called pillars. They're trusts. There were lump sums of money that the government put into these pillars, and they were to earn interest, and the interest was going to be paid out to cover those who received Social Security. Okay? Doesn't that sound like everything we've been talking about tonight? Have the money, have it grow, and live off the interest, don't touch the principal. That was the whole idea of Social Security. But unfortunately, some of those people lived a little bit longer. Matter of fact, I think it was Patty Mabe, who was the very first person to ever pay into Social Security and actually received the very first dollar out of Social Security, lived to 101. She paid $21 into the system and ended up collecting something like $48,000 from the system. So those pillars are going to run out at some point because they started to carve into the principal and not just pull the interest from it. But what's interesting, as long as I've been in the business, 30 years next month in November, they've been talking about those pillars running out. So they were going to run out in 2009, and they're going to run out in 2013. You're CPA, you've been hearing about it, right? They've been going to run out. Well, now they just said they're going to run out in 2033. They just keep pushing them out. What else? Someday maybe they'll run out. So what they did is they created a second part to Social Security in about the early 70s, and that is, if you're working, you have to pay 15 cents of every dollar you earn to Social Security. So if you work for somebody, you pay 7.5% and your employer pays 7.5%. You pay 7.5 cents, they pay 7.5 cents for every dollar you earn when you're working. If you are the company, so you're 1099, independent contractor, whatever, then you're paying the whole 15 cents yourself, right? But as that money is paid in every month, that's the money that pays out the Social Security benefits next month. So it's a pay and payout system. Do we think that all companies are going to shut down and there's going to be nobody ever working again? Probably never going to happen, so Social Security is always going to be around, okay? Is it going to get weaker? Yeah, I'm going to show you a slide of how it might get weaker for generations of like that Josh and Michaela, but for us, it's not. It's going to be there. It's going to be fairly solid. Right now, based on the amount that you paid into Social Security, it's going to pay back to you somewhere, they say, an average of about 43, 44% of your income. So that's why I talked the other night about, could you live your retirement life off of that Social Security benefit? If you could, and you're in that poverty level, then you'll avoid taxes perfectly, okay? But everybody kind of said, nope, I can't live off of that. I want to continue to live off the income I'm making now. So that's what we're going to try and talk about, how to deal with this. But how can you turn around and work Social Security to your advantage? There's different ages of being able to take your Social Security. There's 62 is the earliest. Unless you're disabled, you can take Social Security Disability, SSDI, at any age. Once you turn on SSDI, it stays at the same payment, other than the COLA increases, but it stays the same payment for the rest of your life. At 62 is the soonest you could take Social Security benefits, which I'm going to say is going to be the least amount it's going to pay out. However, if you live a long time, you could really win and get the most money out of Social Security, right? Because you turn on 62 and now you're drawn on it that whole time. Then there's going to be full retirement age, which I'm going to show a slide of the age, so you can see your full retirement age. And at that point, you can receive your full Social Security benefits and earn as much income as you want and not have to own any of it back. And then there's full retirement age, which is 70. And at 70, it doesn't grow anymore. So right now, it's growing at 8%. That's pretty good. You don't have any investments, and that's pretty crazy. I can stand here with complete confidence and say you don't have any investments that are guaranteeing you an 8% rate of return year in, year out. The Social Security does. Okay? So, obviously, if you turn it on sooner, you're going to get less money per month, but probably more money over your lifetime. If you turn it on later, you're going to get more money per month, but probably less money over your lifetime. Make sense? So what's the criteria? What do you turn it on? What do you do? There's 576 different ways to turn on your Social Security. It's pretty complex. Matter of fact, there are more rules and regulations to Social Security than there is to our tax law. Is that not crazy? There's 11 journals for our tax code. There's 17 journals for Social Security. So that's why there's a lot of people that do Social Security seminars. And it's funny, I've attended a lot of them, and a lot of them are very correct with the stuff that they say. So be careful with it. It also kind of stinks if you talk to Social Security themselves. A lot of times, if you talk to 3 different people, you get 3 different answers. So it's a difficult area to navigate, all right? If you're interested in the lab sessions, we can help you understand Social Security a little bit better. One of the things that I'm fortunate of is the gentleman who actually writes the Social Security law for legislation in the White House. Now, of course, he writes it, then it has to go be voted on and approved and da. But he's actually created software that we are a part of. So we can actually dial right into his software, we can call his folks, and they don't ever get the answers wrong. So if you want to learn more about your Social Security, then just let us know when you come into the lab session, and that's something that we can definitely work with. One of the things I like about the Social Security software is it can kind of give you an idea of when you're going to be at a break-even point. So if you send us the appropriate documents to show how much you've paid into Social Security, and we say that you're going to start to turn on now, so in other words, if you continue to earn more income and maybe boast out some of the previous years, then of course the numbers would be a little bit different. We would need to run the report again, okay? Let me back up and say, so you have to have 40 quarters in order to qualify for Social Security. They're going to look at the last 35 years, and they're going to take an average of those 35 years, and that's going to be your Social Security benefit. So obviously, if you earned more this year, then that could push out one of the lower years. Now your Social Security would be higher in the future. But if you've already hit all of the amount that you've earned, and now you're kind of laying back a little bit more, like Robert said he was earlier, he's kind of laying back, been a really successful CPA his whole life, New York, Florida, now he's laying back a little bit. All right, so if he's earning now, he's probably not going to push one of his 35 years out, right? So he can pretty much look at his Social Security benefit and know that's what it's going to be. So in the software, what's interesting is that you can plug in what year you think you want to turn it on, or it'll even tell you the best year to turn it on, and it'll tell you what year you have to live to, what age you have to live to break even. Get all the money back that you ever paid into it. And if you live past that point, well, great, then you win. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to help you live longer, but it's kind of interesting if you at least know the goal, you know, and it says that, you know, you have to live to 81 to break even, well, then don't die before 81, right? And what's really cool is if you're married, it'll run your spouse up one side, you down the other side, then you just kind of go, okay, if he dies here, then I got to live to there, we break even, right? So I kind of like that side of it because you can manipulate the numbers. And that is, if we turn around and say that you're going to pass away at 90 and let the software run, it's going to give us a different date that you should turn it on than if we say you're going to pass away at 85. And we're going to ask you, when we run the report, what age do you think you're going to live to? And you have to give us a number based off of, you know, your brothers and sisters, your parents, your grandparents. You have to give us an idea. So I like the little bubble grid that you can just roll your finger and at least see where the break-even point is, because at that point, it doesn't necessarily matter what age we decided, right? And what we normally do for our clients is we constantly redial that thing every time we meet with them. So that way we're kind of like fine-tuning it to figure out. For you guys, we'll run it one time on the lab session if you want, and at least you'll have that, okay? So when we look at, this is the full retirement age. So if you can look at, it's in your book too, but if you want to look here, just look where your birthday is and follow across and see what your full retirement age is, okay? So does everybody have their full retirement age? Right? Because everybody's is a little bit different, like unless you were born in the same year as somebody else. So there are benefits for a married couple that the spouse could go through, and once they hit 62 years of age, they could take 50% of their other half, or they could take their own Social Security, whichever is greater. And there may be a case where you could take half of your spouse's benefits, so you're still married to them, and allow yours to continue to grow. There are benefits for an ex-spouse. So if you turn around and you've been married to that person for 10 years, you're divorced, and you're not married at the time, you could turn around and go back to collecting that person's Social Security benefits if it's greater than yours. This is a really cool thing. You can go have up to 8 people collect from your Social Security. So Robert, I'm picking again because you're probably the oldest in the room, all right, just because you said how old you were. So Robert, if he started out getting married at a really, really young age, and you were married for 10-year intervals to 8 different women, they all could collect from the same Social Security. Does it affect any of the women at all? No. There's no reduction. There's nothing different. Doesn't make any difference if he's married to one now and the other 7 he was married to before. They can all still collect from his Social Security and get the same benefits. Yeah.
Is your full amount versus their full amount? I thought it was half their amount.
So if you are going to collect from your ex-spouse,
Uh-huh.
you can collect the full amount of their benefit if it's greater than yours and let yours continue to grow.
Oh.
So if you're divorced, okay?
Mhm.
If you're married, it's 50%. If you're divorced, it can be 100%.
Oh.
Okay? So the biggest thing that's crazy to me is that a lot of these people don't want to give up their information to their ex-spouse. And I mean, I understand being vindictive, and that's all it is, because it doesn't affect you at all to give up your personal information to your ex-spouse. So your ex-spouse might be able to get a little bit more money to help your kids and stuff out, right? Now, the other is to go through and do the widow's benefit. And so the widow's benefit is different. If you're not employed, you can collect at 60, and that situation too is where you can collect off of the person that passed away, collect 100% of that benefit, allowing yours to continue to grow, and then at 70, you either get yours if it's higher, or you stay on that person's that passed away if it's higher, whichever one's higher. So Social Security is a pretty cool program if you work it right, okay? You can suspend Social Security also. Once we've hit full retirement age and we're taking it, we can suspend it anytime we want. Now, if you suspend it from full retirement to 70, for whatever time it's suspended, it earns 8% again. So then when you turn it back on, you're going to get more. Interesting. If you suspend it after 70, it's not going to compound at 8%. So you turn on, you're still going to get the same amount. So why would you want to suspend your Social Security then after 70? Tax mitigation. Remember, we talked about the fact that if you're trying to live in the poverty level, okay, as far as for the IRS's purposes, but you want to still live your same lifestyle, then you could, if you get to like July or August, and you're going to push through the tax brackets, then you would suspend your Social Security. You could suspend your insurance contract. Don't take any money from those. Turn to your Roth and take money out of your Roth because it's completely tax-free. Your 7702, tax-free. It doesn't count. Take your paycheck from there till the end of the year. Once you hit the end of the year, turn that back off, turn your insurance on, turn your Social Security back on. You just saved yourself all those taxes. You just gave yourself a raise as far as I'm concerned because you didn't pay anything out in tax. It didn't possibly push up your Medicare premium, your Social Security tax. I mean, it's just an easy way to do the mitigation. You just have to pay a little attention to it. Okay? Don't just file the taxes at the end of the year. The challenge comes if you turn your Social Security on before full retirement age. So you can turn on at 62, and you all have your full retirement age. So if you turn on your Social Security before full retirement, you are limited to how much you can earn. $21,240 for this year. If you earn more than that, now when we talk about earn, that has to be 1099 or W-2. So if you do an IRA conversion and you move that money over, you got to pay taxes as ordinary income. That's not earned income to this number. Right? If you sell a house, you sell a car, you sell a stock, you sell an I-bond, whatever, that is not income that is counted towards that. You still have to pay taxes on that stuff, but it's not income that's counted. This is only W-2 or 1099, so only paychecks earned income from an employer. Okay? If you earn more than $21,240, for every $2 you earn over that, you owe $1 of Social Security back. So if you make like $40,000, you may owe all of your Social Security back. So it could be a triple whammy to turn your Social Security on early and then go get a decent job. Because if you turn your Social Security on, you've lost the 8% compounding. You then hit the end of the tax year when you file your tax return and you show how much you earned. That's when they're going to take your Social Security back. So you had it throughout the year, now you have to give it back, and you're going to pay the taxes on it, even though you don't have it. Triple whammy. Don't do that. Don't do that. So I had a lady come in today, that was one of her lab sessions. She did not understand this, but we spent an hour trying to help her with it. She's in the perfect scenario to turn her Social Security on early. She works for a home health care company, and she's 1099, which to let you know, 1099s will probably be gone in another 18 months. The IRS does not want them anymore. Too many people are getting paid 1099 and not declaring it. So people were going to need to go through and create LLCs, limited liability corporations if you're an independent contractor, so that money goes to the LLC and it's trackable for the IRS, right? So like for our employees, we like to give them bonuses on various different things. We've now had all of them get their own LLCs and all the bonuses go to the LLCs, right? So that's coming down the pike, but she's a 1099, she's getting money from her home health care company. They would love it if she created an LLC, and they would pay the LLC rather than her, okay? So she's gonna go do the exact same work, but she happens to be 62, her benefits are less than her husband's, her husband is 4 years older than her, and her husband works as a school nurse and as a handyman. So he's a W-2 and a 1099, or really probably cash over the table. But that's their scenario. It is so perfect for her to turn on her Social Security, set up an LLC, have her compensation go to the LLC that her and her husband own together. So they would be partners. So let's say she makes $100,000, okay? If that $100,000 went into the LLC, she could take her $21,240 and she could give the difference to her husband on paper for tax purposes. Now, it's her LLC. She's working. She made the $100,000. She's probably going to take the $100,000 and spend it. Right? It's just paper-wise. Now that's how she would file it. So that way she doesn't lose any of her Social Security, and she now has her Social Security check on. This woman's Social Security was $1,788. Right? That's how much it would be if she turned it on now. Second part that I tried to explain to her is your husband's Social Security is greater than yours. He's 60, I think he was 64, close to 65. He's got like 5 more years for it to grow. Why not, on paper, pay him all of the money out of the LLC? It doesn't make any difference tax-wise. You're a couple. You're filing joint income. So it's his nursing, his home, his handyman, and your schoolwork or aid stuff. That's all coming together into one pot. You have to declare it as a couple, and you're paying taxes as a couple. So it is no different if you chose to say that the entire $100,000 in the LLC is his. But if they did that, what would it do? It would boost his Social Security. So that means they would get more of a Social Security payment later on. And the thing about Social Security is that when we lose one of the couple, the surviving spouse gets the larger amount. The smaller amount goes away. There is no way to leave Social Security to your children. It's gone, right? So if she turned it on, and my question to her was, do you need the $1,700? And at first when we sat down, she said no. As we continued to talk, they got 2 kids in school, senior in college and a junior in college. So it is kind of tough, and all of a sudden I see that they have credit card expenses. She needs the freaking money. She couldn't understand. She just could not grab the concept. She did not like the idea that her husband was going to get the money. It's like, he's not getting the money. Anyway, she couldn't get it. Couldn't get it. But, interesting concept, right? Totally legal. There's nothing here that's gray. It is perfectly fine. The husband and wife can own an LLC together. The husband can get paid the higher amount if he's the higher Social Security earner. We can put it all. The IRS could care less. All the IRS cares about is that $100,000 went from that home health care company to the LLC, and the LLC's paying taxes on it. That's all the IRS cares about. That's all they care about. And all her home health care company cared about was that they get to pay an LLC and their patients are taken care of. That's all they care about. So it just kind of blows me away. But you may have some massive opportunities to pull a lot of money from Social Security, right? And you may have a lot of opportunity to have your Social Security grow much, much larger. You just maybe have never looked at it.
But you can only do that if it's 1099.
No. Well, yeah, so if you're a W-2 and your company won't do the 1099, yeah, then you wouldn't be able to do it. So yeah, if you reverse the role situation and she was older but her husband's Social Security was higher, you wouldn't want to do it. If it was a case where, you know, they couldn't set up an LLC, then you wouldn't want to. I mean, her case was just so perfect, and she just couldn't get it. Now, what it talks about here is that the year that you're going to turn full retirement age, in that year you can actually earn more. So you can earn up to $56,520. If you go over that, for every $3 over, you owe $1 back. So that's also a way to kind of look at things, because if your birthday is sooner in the year than later, like in December, so it'd be pretty, I mean, I might earn that kind of income through the entire year, but if your birthday was like January or February or March, so right up at the beginning of the year, you could probably earn a lot more the last year before you turn full retirement age, okay? So again, we can look at all that and see where you're at. This is what's going to happen to the younger generation of Social Security, and why I say it's going to become a little bit more of a challenge, is that in 1960, we had 5.1 people working and 1 person collecting Social Security. Then we have the baby boomers, so in 2005, we got 3.3 people working with only 1 person collecting, and by 2040, the Taylor's era, there's going to be 2.1 working to 1 person collecting. So they're saying that for their era, the Social Security amount of money they pay in versus how much they get back is probably going to cover about 28% of their income, okay? So we're in a pretty decent situation. They're not in such a great situation, but they have time to figure out how to build other vehicles to take care of their deal, okay? The Reform Act, Securities Act, they're trying to change things. So what are some of the things that are going to change? Yeah, I didn't pick on you either. I don't know how old you are. You've been flying under your hat there. I didn't. So the Reform Act. What are they looking at going through and doing? They're looking at restricting Social Security down below. What they're looking at doing is raising that full retirement age for the younger generations. So they're talking about maybe having the base, instead of being 62, being 70, being the earliest they could turn Social Security on, okay? They're talking about increasing payroll taxes. So this most likely will happen next year, that it's not going to be 15 cents out of the paycheck, it's going to be 20 cents out of the for Social Security. So you'll be paying 10 cents, your employer will be paying 10 cents. They're talking about raising the early retirement age and increasing penalties if you decide to forfeit. Oh, let me go back to that real quick. So let's say that you turn your Social Security on at 62, okay? At least I don't know how old you are. All right, so at 62 you decide to turn it on, everything is looking grand and great, and at 64 you get offered a job opportunity or a business opportunity of a lifetime. And you're not married, so you don't have anybody you can put on the LLC with you to leave off that money. Now that's a challenge. So the problem is you probably would want to suspend your Social Security or stop it, right? And the challenge is, if you turn it on anywhere between and before your full retirement age, and you stop it, you owe all of it back. Crap. So you would have received it, probably paid taxes on it, lost your 8% compounding, and now you owe it all back. That stupid triple whammy again. So you gotta be really careful. I turned my wife's on, it's funny doing this stuff, I forgot 62. I forgot she even turned 62. But if you ever meet my wife, you'll understand, because she does not look friggin' 62. So I didn't turn it on until she was 63. The amount of income that we make, I turned her Social Security on. Now there's a possibility I could pass away, but I can guarantee she will never work again. Because of the amount of wealth that we have and how everything's set up, she'll never have to work. And I know her personality, she will just never go work for anybody else. So it's just never going to happen. So in our case, it didn't matter. We turned it on, and so she was all excited. She's like, ooh, I got a $1,400 a month raise. And she takes it and she does whatever she does with it. Yeah. Right? So kind of interesting. But we pulled on hers. I'm 7 years younger than her, and my Social Security is a lot greater than hers, and it'll just continue to keep on growing. Unfortunately, with my wife, we have super short life expectancy. Only one person in our family ever made it to 65, and he passed away 2 months after. So nobody's made it past 65 in her entire family, mom and dad's side, and she'll be 64 this year. So, and she does not take care of herself. So it's kind of scary. But we turned her on. She does not. I mean, everybody who meets her thinks she looks like she's maybe in her early 40s. So they all think I'm the old guy. It's so funny because I'm 7 years younger than her. Yeah, so this is coming. The Reform Act is going to come through, and they're going to change a lot of things on that. So understand how to go through and try to optimize that amount that you can get out of Social Security. So sponsored employer plans. There's defined benefit plans, which is the pensions, and there's defined contribution plans. Defined contribution plans are your 401ks, 403s, 457s, what have you. So the defined benefit plan That is where the employer has been putting the money away for you. It's your pension. Most people don't ever put money into their pension themselves. We don't have a lot of pensions any longer unless you're a government employee, you happen to be a firefighter, you happen to be a police officer. And it's kind of interesting because with those professions, they're now offering to either do like a match contribution to a like 401k or take the pension. And it's your decision of which one you want, but you're not going to get both. There's only one employer that I know absolutely well. I have actually met a couple others that are far in between, but there's only really one employer in the United States that gives you both. They give you a really, really nice 401k with a dollar for dollar match contribution, and they give you an incredible pension, and if you finish 30 years and retire before 62, they give you a nice Social Security benefit from whatever age you are up to 62. Guess who it is? Our government.
No.
They're awesome. Right? So all of our government employees have everything offered to them. Okay? Which we do have to work with a lot of them. But on the defined benefit plan, you have to make a decision when you're going to turn that pension on. Do you want it just to come to you and leave nothing at all to your spouse? Do you want to do, so do that single life? Do you want to do a joint with 100%? Do you want to do joint 50%? So this is very similar to what we talked about with the life insurance, right? So if you are and have a pension and you're going to be in this boat, talk about to us on the lab session, okay? Because that's something we can help you with. And I'll tell you guys this. If you have these things that are coming up because you come to the class and you do the lab sessions, you can call us anytime. I really don't care. We'll go through and answer those questions that come up in the future. So if you want to run a different Social Security report 3 years from now, just call us. I have no problem with it. Okay? The defined contribution plan, let me go back to this one. So on this, you might have the opportunity, if you have that pension, to move it out. I was just talking about the FedEx guy earlier. I don't remember why I was talking about him, but with his situation today, he actually had 2 pensions, which was pretty weird. But he had changed divisions, so he was actually working in like packaging and I guess loading and receiving and whatever, and then he became a truck driver. So they actually had a pension for the one, and then we changed positions, they had a pension for the other. So what was interesting is that the one pension had $128,000 in it, and they allowed us to move it right out. So we didn't have to keep it as a pension. We were able to move it out and create a pension outside of work for him, his own pension. Okay? The other, which had a much smaller amount in it, I think it was almost $50,000, we had to elect one of these payment options. So he's lost his wife, he has his daughter, can't make the daughter the beneficiary of the payment, but he could make the daughter the beneficiary of him receiving that reduced benefit. That's what I was talking about, because we took that little bit of reduced benefit, but we kept the policy for 15 years. So if he passed away prematurely, his daughter keeps getting the payment for the remainder of the 15 years. Right? So it's neat that we actually work a little bit different strategy on both programs. Now the idea would be is if you could move the pension out, because if the pension is through your employer, it is going to be written in stone once you sign and start it. You cannot increase it, decrease it, or stop it till a death occurs. Okay? So if we're trying to do tax mitigating, and we like to suspend come July or August because our income's too high, and we have a pension through work, we can't. We have to consider to receive that income. Okay? But if you could create that pension outside of work, then you could suspend it just like you do Social Security. So if you can move it out, wonderful. But most companies don't want you to move it out, because what happens is when you pass away, the bulk of the pension goes back to the pension program for your other family, your brothers and sisters that you are working with, those ones that you really want to take care of. Right? So it just goes back into the pension plan. So that's how it kind of works. Okay? A lot of you don't have pensions. If you do, we'll definitely talk about it. So when we get to the next portion, the defined contribution plan, understand again, these are not the investment, they're just the identifiers to the IRS. Okay? So again, she had a question about I-bonds, and I asked her, well, is it an IRA, a Roth IRA, or is it an individual account? Because it's going to make a difference, because you have to move it like kind, right? And a Roth would be tax-free, IRAs would be taxable when you take it later, but a joint account or individual account or whatever, it could have capital gain tax when you move it now. So in this situation, this just says that you worked for a private employer, a private company, could be one that you owned, This says that you worked for something that receives some type of money from the state, okay? So maybe you're a school teacher, maybe you're a nurse, what have you. There's a 457 that maybe you're in a dangerous position. There is the SEP IRA, simple IRAs, what have you. So there's all different names for them. That means nothing because they're not the investment. You still have to choose the mutual funds that are going to go inside of those stocks or bonds, what have you, right? Yeah.
I'm starting to see Roth 401k.
Perfect, so we'll talk about it. It's a great situation. So on this, you go through and you're making the deposit out of your check, okay? You're putting money in there. And then from there, you're gonna go through and be responsible for the investment and getting the money out later on. Whereas on the pension plan, the employer's putting money in, the employer's responsible for it, and then they're gonna tell you how much you're gonna get later. So you have far more flexibility with this. And the government actually switched this in about 1978 and said, you know what, we think people are pretty smart. We don't need the employers to be responsible. We think we'll start this 401k and let them do their own savings plan. Probably the biggest mistake in the world because most people don't participate in it. So a lot of people are hitting retirement and only have Social Security income. They only have one leg stool, right? In Europe, it's still mandated that the business has to pay these pensions. And almost everybody has pensions, okay? So the use is a little bit different. But in this particular plan, as you put money into it, you could go through and put money into the 401k IRA, which is a deduction for you, which we talked about the first night. Or as he just said, you now may be able to put money into the Roth 401k. So your company may have the opportunity to have Roth. I would highly recommend you do the Roth, right? Because I'd rather pay taxes on the seeds today than taxes on the entire crop like the IRA. But let's talk about whether your company does match contributions. If your company does match contributions, you would want to struggle and do everything you can to put every dollar in to get that match. I talked to a nice lady today in her lab session, and I said, do you have match contributions? She said, I do. She works for a very, very large elevator company. I said, what percentage of your income do they match? And she said, I don't know. Can you guess? I think I saw something about 4%. Okay, so you put 4% of your income in, and what do they match it with? She said, I don't know. So it's a little confusing because they might say something like this. We'll match 4% of your income with 5%. 4%, we'll match 4% of your income with 5%. So that second number, just take the percent sign off and put cents. So we'll match 4% of your income with 5 pennies. If it says 50%, we'll match 4% of your income, so every dollar you put in, with 50 pennies. Guys, that's a 50% rate of return. And you don't even have to put it in the market, you just put it in a money market account. Not have any risk at all and get a 50% rate of return. Well, hers happened to be 4% matching dollar per dollar. She wasn't participating. Right? 100% rate of return. She been on them 3 years and wasn't participating. Now, let's talk about that participating, and let's use her as the example. So she puts her 4% in. She makes $100,000 a year. She can put $4,000 into the Roth. Okay? Because she has a Roth 401k. She can do that. But the $4,000 from the employer cannot go in the Roth. It has to go to the traditional. Okay? So you're going to have one of both. Why? Now, you're still going to pick the same investments. So whatever investments you choose in here, they're going to automatically set that up as the same investments here. And now you can change if you want, but that's how they're going to set it up. So you don't have to pick investments for both. Why does the employer have to put it into the traditional? Because the employer is using it as a tax deduction when they give it to you. So they're using it as a tax deduction to you, and then you get it in your Roth, and you don't ever have to pay tax on it ever again. Well, that would be a double whammy to the IRS. And that ain't ever going to happen. Right? So that's why they have to put it into the traditional. No, you cannot take your traditional and convert it to the Roth through work. Can't do it. You have to move it out of work, and then you can do the conversion if you want. Now, Secure Act, next year in 2024, the employer has the opportunity to put the match contribution into the Roth. Whoa, how many employees do you think are going to do that? Because if they're not using it then as a tax benefit, a tax deduction for them, they're just giving you the money and paying taxes on that earned income. They're giving it to you and paying the taxes for you so you can have that tax free. How many employees do you think you're going to do? I can only think of one. The government. I'm sure the government will do it for their employees, right? So right now, though, you'll end up having those two. My personal feelings, if your company does not give you match contribution, I wouldn't participate with the 401k. It's mutual funds. Why not, if you have money that you're trying to save, go out and save it in your own IRA or your own Roth and pick your own investments. Have control of it yourself. If you have a lot of money that you're trying to save and your company says that we'll match 4% dollar per dollar, put your money there, the 4%, but if you're wanting to put away like 10%, do 4% there, and then take the difference and go do your own Roth outside of work. If you've maxed out the Roth, which is $7,500 per person if you're over 50 this year, and you still want to put more, well then go back to the Roth, the work plan. And that's how I would play that little circle. Okay? If you change jobs, or if your job changes the investment program, you have an opportunity to move your money out onto your own. Okay? So if you end service, remember we said 59.5, or you end service, you can move your money out of your 401k. A lot of people leave it there. A lot of people take it and move it to the new job. There's only one positive to moving the money to the new job. And I don't know that's real positive, but the situation is, you take the money from your old employer and move it to the new job, it is not going to get you any match contributions. It is not going to get you any better rate of return. It's not going to do anything for you except if the job allows you to take a loan against your 401k. Because you can no longer use your IRA as collateral or take a loan against your IRA. You can only do it against your 401k, and it's really against the older plans because the new plans don't allow it. So if you think you might be in a situation where you need to take a loan against your 401k, that would be the only reason to move your old one with your new one. Otherwise, I would always say move your old one out of there. Okay, we just did a deal with Motorola because they just merged with some other big group, and so there was a point where we could move their money out of that Motorola 401k and onto their own, even though they hadn't ended service, because of the fact that they were going with a new carrier, and the employees didn't know the new carrier, they didn't feel comfortable with the new carrier, whatever. But this was the funny part. They gave us 3 days. That was the window of action. 3 days to move that money. If you didn't do it in that 3 days, you couldn't move it. It had to go with the new guy. So, interesting stuff. But that's a big deal if you've ended service or your company changes. How about your personal savings account? That is this bucket that we haven't talked a whole lot about, right? You pay the taxes on this money here, and now whatever interest it earns is taxable. But you also could have your IRA outside of work, which would be this bucket. You could also have a Roth IRA outside of work. So those would also be personal investments, right? So we have traditional IRA, Roth IRA. You could have the 7702 life insurance. You could have money markets, CDs. Your home equity line could be a major investment for you. You know, with your house later on down the road, maybe you'd refinance it if you fall short. Maybe you would do a reverse mortgage if you fall short. So there's a lot of things that you could do with your home in that situation. Maybe you'd even refinance it, right? I mean, just give you a little bit of a philosophy because we're doing all out of time. I am a firm believer that I put nothing in my homes or my houses. I'll pay for my cars, but I don't put anything into my homes or my houses. And here's my homes or my businesses, buildings. And here's the reason I'm saying it. I had a guy who just went through and sold his house for $400,000, cleared $400,000, put the $400,000 into his next house for $800,000 and financed $400,000. So he basically had kind of like the same payment from before, but he buried that $400,000 into that house. So, 2 thoughts on that. If the house were to burn down and they say it's arson and they don't pay, he lost the house. He still owes the mortgage on the $400,000 and he lost his $400,000. It's gone. If a hurricane wipes out the house and his insurance company goes belly up, he just lost his $400,000 and he still owes on the house, right? If he were to take the $400,000 and put it into an investment, and the same thing would have happened, the hurricane would have wiped out the house, he still owes on the house, but he could look at the lender and say, sorry, take the land, mark it against my credit, and now move on. Because he's got $400,000 to go buy another one. Is the house going to be worth more or less 10 years from now? Who knows? Probably more. right? Doesn't make any difference. Whether he put the $400,000 in there or he didn't put the $400,000, it's still gonna be worth the same value. So if he chooses to sell it 10 years from now, he's gonna either pay off that mortgage because it's gonna be close to the value, or maybe it's gonna be a little bit more. But the $400,000 over here has earned interest for him. I mean, what if it went into one of the guaranteed contracts we're talking about that does 10%? Holy crap, that thing is growing, right? So that's my philosophy. I don't put excess money into anything I don't have control over, and I don't have any control over any insurance company. Cars are a little different story with us, but I usually buy cars in really bad situations, as in people are going to lose them, and I go in and out for cash and pick up the car that way. But for our commercial properties, that's what I'll do. So I'll take now, and sometimes use commercial property to go through and buy, something else and pull equity out of that property. With the properties too, I'll give you a little example of the 7702. I have a very large 7702. I have a building that I went to buy. So what I did is I created a holding company that bought the building, okay? I then borrowed the money from my insurance contract. My insurance contract charged me 5% interest, but it allows me to participate in the market if I want, and I've been performing greater than 5%. So I'm actually making money on my insurance contract, even though I have the money out of it as a loan to my company to buy the building, okay? Now, I can charge whatever interest I want to be in guidelines of the IRS, so I charge my business enough interest that when my business charges rent for those tenants that are in there, the rent is eaten up because of the cost of the business having to pay my insurance policy back. So, understand that the rent I collect, I make the profit, I don't pay any tax. Because the business that collects the rent has such a nut that has to pay to my insurance contract. My insurance contract is tax-free. So that again is where you go, man, this sucks that wealthy people don't pay taxes. No, wealthier people just understand. They understand how to do the mitigation, okay? So, just kind of an idea of having like a 7702, but kind of longer range. I've had mine for a long time. I went through and bought a medical building one time down in Broward County, right across from Holy Cross Hospital. I happened to buy that with my Roth IRA. I bought that with 3 other partners. So all of us took the money from our Roth IRAs and we bought the building. The Roth is just an identifier. It doesn't matter what the investment is inside of it. This was a commercial property. So all the rent that we collected from this property went to our Roth, and we paid no tax on all of that rent. But we didn't get to that point because as we were going through and redoing the building, which was really sad, we ended up buying the building for $1.2 million. And as we were going through and renovating it to get it to become medical offices, we found out that the elevator was bad. It was huge. It was like $1.3 million for the elevator, and the chiller was bad, which was like $900,000. So we were a little bit freaking out, going, man, we really got suckered on this one. And this guy came in, and I'm going to say he was wearing jeans and just a shirt and a baseball cap. And he walks in the front door, and I'm like, can I help you? I thought he kind of wanted a job as a maintenance guy. And he goes, is the building for sale? And I'm like, well, it depends. Who are you? He said, I'm the U.S. Postal Service. I sold to him $4.2 million. Tax-free. All went to our Roth. And that's what launched me to be able to do a lot of stuff that I do now, the real estate and stuff that we have. It's just understanding how to work with the tax code. You've probably seen stuff like this, being a CPA, right? All right, so your home could be a lot of equity for you later on in retirement. And if it's a case where you're thinking, should I pay my house off so I don't have a mortgage payment in retirement? No. No. If you can get a better rate of return on your investment than you're paying on the interest on the mortgage, no. Always borrow somebody else's money. Why pay the house off? What if you lose it? Then you've lost all that money and the house. No. I wouldn't do it.
Take a home equity loan out, you're saying?
Maybe. Yeah. Might be a decent idea if you can invest it appropriately to get more interest than what you're paying on the interest rate. Might be harder right now with these interest rates where they're at. Right? Required minimum distributions. You're going to hit an age that you have to take the money out of your IRA, whether you need it or you don't. And the crazy thing is with most of our clients, they don't need the money. And yet they hit this age, and the IRS says you have to take it out. So when you have to take it out, it's income, it's going to push your bracket, it's going to push your Medicare, it's going to push your Social Security, it's going to do all this stuff. So here is the birth date. If you were born before 1950, you have to start that at 72. It used to be 70.5, now it's 72. If you were born between 51 and 58, it's 73, and I think this is kind of a joke. They forgot to include 1959. We are now in September of this year, and they still have not decided what's going to happen with 59. That's why it has an asterisk in your book, because we don't know if they're going to move 59 to 73 or 59 to 74, which there isn't even a 74 number. If you were born after 60, me, I don't have to take it till 75. Right? But I don't have any money in the IRA anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. I've converted everything and have everything set up in Roth and have for years. So that's kind of a neat little table for you to see. Yes, sir.
How are the RMDs calculated?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. So I don't know if I said this before, but I thought when I first started doing this business that the only one who knew when you were going to die was God. I found out that the IRS knows. Because they have this table that actually shows what percentage you have to take out before your age of death, because they want the entire thing depleted before you die, right? So in essence, what ends up happening here is that whatever age you are, there's percentages, and obviously as you get older, the percentage gets larger, right? So there's a math formula. You can hit their website to see how that works.
Are those months, the distribution period?
No, so the distribution is, you have to do 24%, 24.7% of the total amount. There's a, it's just giving you the distribution on this. So you'd have to go read the formula on the website. So you can go to, just put in IRS RMDs, and it'll pull up the tables for you and give you the full math formula, okay? So actually at this point here, it comes out to, it's saying the distribution here is actually 4.05%. I don't know if I totally agree with that, but I mean, somebody did the math and it probably is. Because usually we think it's about 2%, 3% of it, but it says there 405. So it's just kind of showing what percentage of that asset you'd have to liquidate as you get older.
Every year.
Every year. Every year. And if you don't take it, it used to be a 50% penalty, right? The new Secure Act changed it to a 25% penalty. Hey.
If you die and you haven't taken it out, then your estate has to pay the tax?
So if you die, now what's happening with the new Secure Act is that if your heirs, other than your spouse, receive your IRA, it has to be liquidated within 10 years. They can either pay all the taxes on the day one, they can pay taxes through the 10 years, or taxes at the end. If they receive the Roth, it also has to be liquidated within 10 years. Do you know that now? Roths have to be liquidated in 10 years. Okay? So again, my suggestion, I think is important to cover, if you inherit one of your family's IRAs, and it is an IRA, I would look at liquidating it immediately and settling the taxes on it. Because why would you want to pay any taxes on any more of this thing growing, right? Or stunt its growth and pay the taxes later. But if you receive the Roth, do not liquidate it. Let that puppy go all the way to the last day, because you want it to grow to be worth as much as possible, because there's no tax, right? So that's, yeah.
What is the distribution period on that? What does that mean?
This is the age that you have to start doing it. So this one's calculated at 73.
Right.
For myself and Lisa, we would be 75 years of age, so this is not our table.
No, but I mean the distribution period. What, that 24.7, what does that mean?
That is the, so there's a calculation of taking that 24.7, do you remember the calculation? Going into the amount that you have, and then you have to divide it, and so there's a whole formula that comes. But somebody already did the math on this, so basically at 73, you'd have to take about 4.05% of your asset.
Gotcha.
So if you have $100,000 in that IRA, you have to take $4,050.
And then I have another,
Yeah,
probably a stupid question.
no stupid
Because
question.
there's a lot of things that we say, you have to do this before here, you have to do this before here.
Yep.
Who reminds us of that?
So the requirement distributions are supposed to be letting you know from your investment holder. So if you have it with an investment with an investment bank, they're supposed to let you know. If you have it with an insurance company, they're supposed to let you know. And they will. But here's the challenge. Let's say that you have so much of your IRA in an annuity, so much of your IRA in this investment in this company, so much of your IRA in that investment, your whole 401k still with your whole employer. Maybe you're a nurse and you have 401ks with 5 employers because you guys don't seem to move them. You leave them at your old employers, right? What the IRS is looking at is that you have only one Social Security number, so you have only one IRA. They don't care how many accounts you're calling your IRA, there is one. So you have to know the value of all of them to be one, and it's this percentage of that one IRA. Now, with that being said, they don't care where you take the money from as long as you settle it. So you probably, if you have multiple holdings, would want to probably take it from that one that hasn't done as well, right? Okay, so that sometimes is very confusing when you're working like with your parents and they've got multiple IRAs and they're in this situation of having to do that, to do those calculations. So even though your investment firm might come back and say, hey, did you know you have to take $4,000 this year? You may have a lot more than $100,000 in an IRA because you've got 5 other accounts with $100,000. Okay, so you just have to make sure that you go through it. So what they're saying is if you don't take the correct amount, and then when you pull the correct amount out later, they're going to charge you a 25% penalty and accrued interest for not taking that money out. Yeah. Well, it used to be 50% though. So this year they lowered it to 20. That's where you get really mad at guys like this, the CPA, who didn't do the calculation. Right, Robert? All right, so that's why these two numbers right now, probably for your generation, mean the most, because 59.5 is the earliest you can move money out of your employer without any type of challenges, and 73 is probably when you have to start your required minimum distribution. So, key notes of tax-efficient income planning. I covered a lot of them, as far as going through and doing it, but I think that the biggest ones to really take away are you don't have to have as much money in retirement if it's in a Roth as if it's in the IRA, right? Because every time you take money out of the IRA, it's freaking taxable. And then you got to figure out how to get the money to pay that tax and try to take it from there, and it's just that wicked spiral. I think it's super important that as you hit retirement and you don't have a paycheck from work anymore, that you really seriously pay attention to what your income bracket can be to stay out of Medicare premiums, out of Social Security tax, out of the tax brackets altogether, to live in poverty. What is that income number? CPA can give it to you instantly. TurboTax can give it to you instantly. What is that number? And then if you're working that lifestyle and your income, you'll know when to suspend your Social Security, when to suspend those areas that are taxable income. Let those sit for a while and take from the other buckets that are not taxable, so you can truly live in poverty and not lose any of that money to tax. It's the same lifestyle. You still have the same paycheck coming in.
If you have $500,000 in a traditional IRA, can you convert all that into a Roth?
You can. It's just whether you can stomach the tax.
Right.
Because you have to pay the taxes as earned income for the year that you do it. So how old are you?
63.
63 is a horrible number because they look back 2 years for Medicare, right? Your Medicare premiums are going to increase based off of the last 2 years of earning. So really 62 and younger would have been great to do the conversion. Now 63, you're going to have to be a little bit more careful, right? But again, if you have that kind of money in the IRA, let's run the numbers for you so you can see how it's going to cost and what it's going to cost you and your family to not do anything, and then we can play with what does it look like, what's the tax bill if you do it.
What if you're still employed with a health care plan and you don't declare for Medicare until 67, 68?
You're good.
Do they use those 2 years and not 63 and 64?
Right, so they're going to, when you decide to go through and come off of your health care at work, it's 2 years of income back. 2 tax returns, yep. So in that case, if you still had health insurance through work, you could do the conversion and not be worrying about that Medicare premium. But our software will take all that into consideration and be able to show you, okay? Yeah.
Is there a number of times you can turn on and turn off, suspend Social Security?
No, you can do as often as you want. What's funny is that if you guys have us run that software for you, you probably will say the exact same thing as every person before you. You're going to look at it and go, well, why didn't you put this as one of the slides? We can't because this is a 501c3. This is all approved material through the 501c3, and the software I'm going to show you is my software proprietary to myself. Okay, so we can't put it into this software. So what did we learn? there are several potential sources of retirement income, right? You've got IRAs, Roth IRAs, what have you. The rules of regulation surrounding each source needs to be managed correctly so that you can try and do that tax mitigation. And then taxes and inflation are serious considerations because whatever planning you do today is going to definitely affect what happens later. I think this one's kind of long. So, action steps would be to identify and examine all factors that may have potential sources of retirement income, find out how and when to elect your Social Security benefits and maximize your income from it. You know, the average couple will leave over $100,000 on the table from Social Security because they elect the wrong times and the wrong ways of taking and turning it on. Find the strategies that maximize the income for retirement savings. Learn how to strategically set up your income plan to minimize that tax. That's what I've just been pounding on. Hopefully you've gotten a little bit of that tonight. Look at the potential ways to ensure you do not outlive your income. I mean, that's the biggest thing for us and our clients is that we don't want to run out of money before we run out of time. To give you guys a little bit of an idea, when we have our clients, we actually meet with them every 90 days. Every 90 days, we're looking through this stuff. That's how we do our tax mitigation. That's how we're doing our income planning. That's how we're doing everything every 90 days. And you guys go, wow, that seems like a lot. Yeah, but it's super important because a lot of times, you know, you guys haven't looked at it at all, right? Find an income planning professional to help you maximize that lifetime income to minimize tax. Robert could be a fantastic source. He's a CPA, although he's not taking any more clients because he's retiring. Financial planner could be a great source. You pay a financial planner, you keep doing the investments yourself. Find a fiduciary that actually does all of these things all wrapped in one. Okay? So if you would answer these last three things, and then I will give you my last little piece of a close. Why are you sitting there? Oh, you're scaring me. I'm like, what did I do wrong? Yeah, so when you finish that and you guys get ready to go, just turn this paper into Michaela so we have it if you would. And Robert, I think you have your disclosure.
I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
You were born in Wisconsin.
I was. How did you know
So
that?
was I.
Did I say I was?
No, but I looked you up.
Oh.
I'll be there next week.
Oh, where were you born?
I'm going to Prairie Sheen and Viroqua and Eau Claire. Go to a cabin, go fishing.
Nice. Very nice. My grandparents used to own a cabin in the Milwaukee Valley. I used to love going out there. And we went on
Flying
these
into
videos.
Madison.
What's that?
I'll fly into Madison. So I just had to say that. 'Cause I thought you were a Midwestern boy.
Well, I was born there and actually grew up in Colorado. So.
Oh, beautiful there.
Florida hasn't rubbed off on me.
Beautiful there too, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the last part I'm going to kind of finish up and say with this, because this is the wheel. When you come in the office, you're going to see my wheel. It's a little bit different than this, but it's still the same scenario. And the whole thing is that if you think of this as being like a chocolate chip cookie, and I mean that's kind of hokey, but I absolutely love chocolate chip cookies. So now you know more about me. I love purple. I love chocolate chip cookies. So yes, I can be bribed with chocolate chip cookies. But if you're going to make a chocolate chip cookie, you're probably going to get a recipe, right? And you're going to probably follow the ingredients. That's the same thing with retirement. You probably need to have something in writing that you're actually following, right? But let's say you're making that chocolate chip cookie and you turn around and forget to put the chocolate chips in. You still have a cookie, it's just not a chocolate chip cookie. Say you forget to put the salt in, you have a chocolate chip cookie that doesn't taste that good. But you're still going to have the cookie. And that's kind of the point. You're still going to have retirement. You're going to go through it no matter what. It just depends upon how good it's going to taste or if it's really going to be the right consistency, right? So that's why I think it's so important to really take and start with these classes, figure this stuff out, and figure out how you can put all that different stuff together. So that's the end of the Prepare class. Hopefully you guys found it helpful, interesting, not too difficult. All right? And at least I got to keep Lisa awake. So if you don't have any other questions, we're good. And
Thank you.
Michaela just needs to collect this.
All the maps and everything to the office.
Hopefully I get to see all of you.
I'll pay you back, like,
Perfect. Yeah. My pleasure.
Who the hell's yours?